Thanks, Steve. So my first Email Insider Summit. Surprised it's my first after hearing about all the locations you guys have these things in. I'm more of an email outsider, so it's not my day-to-day job. It's part of my team's job, but I have a lot of kind of thoughts around how we operate this part of the business. So it's US Open week, which is a big deal for us in our company. It's a big deal in golf. How many golfers are in the room today? Awesome. How many people are playing today? Cool. On the screen, you've got 6 of our athletes up there. I'm going to give away a driver today. I'm going to ask a question. Can you guys, who can tell me how many major championships these guys combined account for? Close.
28, 43, 49.
Getting closer.
56.
Who said 20? Who said 25? Who said less than 25? What did you say?
24. 18.
You in the back.
22. 21.
Who said 21? Winner. 21. I know, it's a bit of a guess. Tiger won 15 of them, so it's a little bit, you gotta add it up. Come find me afterwards. I don't have it in my pocket or on me, but you got a TaylorMade driver coming your way. For a little bit about the company, a little history quick of TaylorMade Golf Company. We've been around since 1979. This is our 40th anniversary. The company was founded by a golf salesman named Gary Adams in 1979. Prior to 1979, every club, every wood was made of wood. And if you look around the pictures of walking around Pinehurst today, you're going to see a lot of wooden clubs. In 1979, Gary had an idea of making a club out of metal, perimeter weighting, filling it with foam, ball flies higher, more forgiving. Long story short, it won on the PGA Tour in 1981. 1993 was the last time anyone had won a professional major with a wooden wood, and since then everything has been made of metal. But that's kind of where we started. So thinking about things differently, changing the way that the game is viewed, constantly innovating, that's what our brand was built around. And today, and kind of what we live every day, is to be the best performance golf brand in the world. That's what we strive to. It's what we focus our energy on, whether it's drivers or irons or golf balls or putters, accessories, so on and so forth. We have, as you saw up there, some of the best players in the world play our equipment. We're very proud of that. Tiger Woods, obviously moving to our equipment a couple years ago. He grew up playing our equipment before Nike paid him to do so. But we're relentlessly focused on innovation and thinking of things better. And for those of you that are golfers in this room, if you got the golf bug at some point, you know what I mean. You're constantly tinkering. You're trying to get better. Handicap and level isn't really indicative of your passion for the game. And so this is just a little video that kind of
From here, your feet are
that.
together. You're going to bow down to the ball. It's going to make a sound.
Now, our chest is the center of our body, correct?
We saw that we're going to have to aim our swing to the right so that the club that's,
Got to make sure there's a little bit of a...
See the V between the thumb
to the left side of a zipper.
and the index finger is pointing toward my right shoulder.
That's not true.
Also keep in mind that if the pin, or the green, sorry,
you need to come in from the top.
You turn, you don't shift.
That couldn't be further from the truth.
It's not turn, turn. It's turn, turn.
Pull the strap underneath, and you're ready to go.
Move to the right or move to
And
the
now
left.
your brain is working against
What
you.
feels right is actually wrong. What feels wrong is actually right.
You need to get a new thought process of visual images, pictures, or nouns.
Okay, we're going to stop that.
All right, I'm in control of my thoughts.
Brain
Is
resists.
up here in the head.
Your brain says, no, why? Don't do
It's
that.
really a no-brainer.
Next to impossible.
This thought is not real.
You want to have a yes mindset.
Spin, back, hook.
looks like. Golf! And then, I promise.
You'll understand how it all fits together.
That's how crazy golfers are, right? Like, you've done some of those things. You've watched some of those videos. So just kind of talking about data, and this isn't going to be a real deep dive into email, but I think for us it's a viewpoint on data and data in sports. And so you look at how data has proliferated sports. Baseball is a great example of data has changed the way that you view players. There's no longer an argument about who is the best shortstop today. There are stats and data that will tell you definitively this guy's the best because his VORP or his win. So there's all kind of stats that baseball is using. Basketball has used it. It has changed the way that the game is played. The Warriors in the three-point shot and the fact that there is no such thing as a mid-range shooter anymore because data says it's better to take a lot of three-point shots and miss those than take a bunch of two-point shots and miss those. But the reality is golf actually has the most potential for data. And there's a conference called the MIT puts on, the Sloan Sports Conference, where all the data geeks around sports get together. And this isn't my quote, I wish it was, but on a scale of 1 to 10, golf is an 11 on the potential for the use of data. And you think about it, the ball doesn't move. It's just you and the golf course. There are no variables. There's no pitcher and batter and other things that are kind of getting in the way or a defender. And so we're just getting started with golf and the use of data. But the potential is massive. And we see it in the best players in the world and on tour. And the way we kind of think about it as a brand, there are 56 million golfers around the world. And if you actually start to think about Top Golf and kind of the recreational things like that, that number is much higher. But we look at the core golfer, there's 56 million golfers around the world. And if we can understand more about what they're playing with, where they're playing, when, how, who they're playing with, and what their stats, their trends, their scores are, that we can give them insights to help them become a better golfer to improve their game. And if we can fulfill on that, we've created brand loyalists. So that's kind of how we view what data can do for us. The problem is deconstructing all this data and finding out all the points that we can utilize. There's a lot of it out there. We have different streams of it. We have it across all kind of parts of the organization. Everyone will talk about that today and has talked about it. How do you synthesize it, get it all in one place, make it useful? And that's kind of the challenge that we're currently facing. We have, we're a wholesale brand generally. The gentleman from Fender talked about it today. I mean, we still do the majority of our business via wholesale through golf pro shops like the one here or large big box sporting goods retailers like Dick's Sporting Goods. But we've built a significant e-commerce business. And so we have this first party data that, the normal stuff that we're doing. We can see what you're buying, what you're shopping for, what you may be in the market for. We get a lot of self-select data that if you go to configure a club custom, we can start to discern your level, what type of player you are, whether you want a stiff shaft, an extra stiff shaft, you're looking for other componentry, we can get information there, all your basic purchase behavior. So all of these things, site metrics, we're taking this and we're doing things with this data. Then we have a fitting. If anyone's gone to a fitting, whether it's with us or another vendor, to get fitted for golf clubs, there's a lot of really, really rich data that we can use to help you play better golf. You go to a fitting, we put you on a launch monitor, which has radar and can determine the spin rates of the ball, the launch angles, all these conditions, club head speed. And we take all that data and we have millions and millions of swings with all of this data around it. And it's very, very rich data. So we've got this, and we know that about you, but it's just for what you're doing at that particular moment in time for a fitting. The real interesting part that we're trying to figure out is on-course data. What happens out in the wild? Once you've gone to a fitting, once you've hit something in a net, what actually happens when you go on the golf course and play? What are you doing? What clubs are you using to do it? How many times are you actually hitting a 5-wood? Or how many times are you hitting a 4-iron? What happens to that driver that you were perfectly fit for when you go out on the golf course and actually start to use it? So where are you using it? What clubs are in your bag? How far are you hitting your driver? What are your tendencies? Are you hitting a lot left? Are you hitting a lot to the right? Are you coming up short on your approach shots? How many putts per round do you have? All those kind of things. And they really culminate in the stat called strokes gained. So if any of you guys watch golf on the weekends, you start to see this a lot on tour. They're talking about it. It's a statistic that allows you to really compare yourself and your performance on every shot relative to a competition set, whether it's the PGA Tour, a scratch golfer, a 5 handicap, a 10 handicap, so on and so forth. So we've developed an app is one way we're kind of starting to do this. We've had forms of this app that some of our top players have been using. The underpinning data set around this, we've used it with a lot of colleges and universities to help you really keep a log of your rounds. So you go out, you play around, we track all of your shots around the golf course, how far you hit them, where they landed, position, and a lie condition, which is important. So if you're in the fairway at 250 yards, or you're in a bunker, or in the rough at 250 yards, those are 3 different outcomes. And so we need to know where you hit it, where it landed, what the next shot was, how far you were. Detailed yardages, you can get GPS yardages on the course, and you can start to identify areas for improvement in your golf game. And what it really comes out is these in-depth stats. So immediately following your round, if you've done this in round, you can do it in round or afterwards. A lot of people still do it afterwards because the data is really important, but they don't want to be bothered in the course of your game. We present a summary of traditional stats, and the traditional stats would be fairways hit, greens in regulation, number of putts, things like that. But then we start to look at strokes gained by segment. So your driving game, your approach game, your short game, and putting. And we can start to break down how are each of those different parts of your game performing. And we can have things like dispersion graphs. Start to look at all your drives during a round or over time. We can plot them on a graph and show you visually what is happening with your round, and then give you insights around that. What should I be doing because of that result? And through this, we have about 100,000 users that are interacting with this app. We've captured 3+ million holes played with 14, 15 million shots. And so you imagine the amount of data we have with a couple million fittings, 15 million shots here. What do we do with all that stuff? 900,000 clubs logged. I heard someone say, and you're talking about, ask people, they will opt in. They will give you information if there's useful stuff coming out of it. So people will log make and model of all the clubs they have in their bag, not just TaylorMade clubs, but whatever else is in their bag. They can start to look at how each of those clubs are performing against each other. So, how do we execute this? And the challenge for us is having the right tools to deliver this information. It's being able to deliver the right emails, the right messaging, whether it's push messaging, finding the user where they are at the right point in time, the right message at the right time, contextually delivering something useful to you about your golf game. That requires a lot of different understanding of what the data is. It requires a lot of different creative. So contextual creative, everybody's going to have a little bit of a different result, and being able to deliver a message that is relevant for what your game is, whether it's you're driving the ball really well, but you're coming up short in all your approach shots, so here's something about your iron game. And then giving you prescriptive information about what should I do. Everything is coming up short and right. Maybe you're not striking your irons as well as you should. Here are some video lessons around ball striking. That's the kind of the useful insights, right? So you wouldn't go out today and go for a run. Any of these are runners. I'd be hard-pressed to find someone. I just go out and run. I don't know how far I'm going. I don't know how fast I'm going or what my pace is. I just run, and then I stop, and I'm done. That doesn't happen anymore. But in golf, frankly, it does. There's a score. You kind of have kept the score, and then you say, I played really well. I putted horribly. The reality is you probably didn't putt horribly. You maybe missed a bunch of greens, and that caused you to be farther from the pin or things like that. So actually what you think is happening, sometimes the data will tell you actually isn't what your result is. Guys, college golfers, example, he'll come back and he says, Coach, I putted great today. I killed it. He's like, no, you didn't. you missed all the greens, and therefore you chipped up and you had 4-footers and you made a bunch of those. You didn't hit any greens versus a guy who hit a bunch of greens and was 20 feet away and made a bunch of birdies. It's not always the result that you think it is. So, what we started with is kind of this basics. There's a lot of data, a lot of things we can push to you, but what we started with was the basics, a welcome series. When you download the app, there's a welcome to the app, some how-tos of how to use it, and then just basic summaries of what's going on in your round. And so for most golfers, that's actually something they don't have access to today. The responses to those are very high, even though it's just basic information. Here's the round you played. Here's a summary of your round. Here's your stat summary. A little bit about your profile as a golfer. And you can start to build that and compare it against another data set. And then what we're really trying to focus on are these performance-based metrics, the results-driven stuff. That's where the insight and the real meat is for us. But as you can imagine, it's pretty difficult to try and distill everybody's shots and give you real personalized information based off the data we have. What should I be telling you? Because most of us as golfers need to work on more than one thing. It's probably all aspects of your game. So how do we prioritize what messages we're sending you? Whether it's driving stats, your short game, your approaches, what are the trends in your game, and then really starting to compare. Golfers in here, you want to know how you're doing against your foursome, against the guys at your club, other people that you play with. Just understanding what your comparison. So you can compare yourself to a PGA Tour player, like I like to do, and it's not very pretty. So I kind of back it down to a scratch golfer or a 5 handicap player. Feel a little bit better about myself, but that's more of my relative competitive set, and I can start to look at my stats against those players. And then the actions piece, again, this is a bit aspirational for us, but I think going back to that 54 million golfers, understanding more and more about them, if I start to look at your rounds and I can really discern, here's what David's doing, and here's where his ball's going, here's how he hits his driver, here's how he's performing in a short game. Maybe he needs a new putter because he's just not, relative to his competitive set, is not putting very well, so let's recommend him a new putter. Or we notice you had 3 balls that went into the water or 3 penalty strokes in your last round. You continually are losing golf balls, and we can note that in the app. Maybe we should send you some new balls. Or you put the new TaylorMade driver in your bag because you won a contest that the guy just decided to throw up at the beginning of a presentation, and now I can see that I'm driving the ball 15 yards longer than my competitors. And so those are the things that we, I can't say that we're there yet, but aspirationally, that's what we know we can do with this data. We know it's useful for the golfer. But really to start to deliver on this is taking a bigger team, more folks to really get into the data and understanding it. So to the resourcing aspect, and I don't have 6 resources on our email team that are able to deliver this. Aspirationally, we think we're going to get there. But we're already running multiple programs, all of our e-commerce programs. Anthony, we do have a loyalty program that we launched and are messaging a lot around that. If you book a fitting with us or go to the Kingdom or go to one of our events, there's a series of email triggers around that. We have club upgrade programs that have 15-plus messages around that. So the same team that's doing all of those things is now tasked with figuring out how to deliver this rich data experience. So you can imagine there's a lot of challenges with that. So we know email is important. We can run all the ROI on it. We're actually seeing a lot of offline effects from email. While we do have mostly third-party data that we are looking at, and 90% of our business is done at wholesale trade partners, we can see the effect of email when it comes to sell-through at retail. Similar to TV commercials that we run on Saturdays and Sundays during events and stuff on the Golf Channel, email is actually almost as effective as some of those programs. So we need to prove it out. And it's not just an ROI. This is a bit of a long-term play for us, because to really get to this journey and to deliver this consumer data, we need to prove out not just some of the stats, the click-through rates, and the ROI, but we know it's a much more valuable customer that uses this information. So the LTV of this customer is twice a normal customer. They're just more engaged, the more intent to buy our products. So these are just a couple examples creatively of some of the messaging. So you've got a welcome series that we do, and then we're populating all of these emails with your individual stats. And so here's a round summary, which you'll get kind of your strokes gained by segment, and you'll start to get some distances and things. And then you've got a longer term summary, which may be a year-to-date summary or a history of since the time you've been using the app. And then some other kind of milestone things. So we're populating a lot of this data. We just moved to responses or to eMarsis from responses. Allowed us to be a little bit more nimble with pulling in this data, populating these emails without having to do as much manual work. And so just kind of the lessons for us is like, don't take the data for granted. We've all talked about it. A number of things we've learned is there's always outliers in this data, so we can't always trust it. There's always a 725-yard drive in someone's thing because a shot didn't get logged properly, or that 7-iron that you topped and hit 15 yards has got to be thrown out. So we've done a lot of work making sure that the data is clean and that we're normalizing it. But it's also just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. There's a lot of stuff in there that we could throw at you, but it's a little much. And so finding the things that we should do, not just the can do. Automation is still manual for us. So no matter how much we try to automate this, no matter how much we pull that data into the systems, there's still a layer of we as golfers, we as marketers need to look at this and say, does this actually make sense? I know we have the data to tell this story, but does it really make sense? So there's still a layer of people touching all of these programs at some point to make sure that they're contextual. And my team, we always say it's automated, but at the end of the day, there's always someone still touching it. And for us, we always talk about we don't have a lack of ideas. We're great with ideas. That's not the problem. It's really how do you execute on the ideas? What are the things that really need to be focused on? What are the small wins? What are the things that we can build on that allow us to kind of get to the next step? And so, for us, ideas are not the problem. And I think the kind of theme around all of this, TaylorMade, we do presentations, we always have to show 1 or 2 videos, so I'm going to do 1 more video. But ideas aren't the problem, and we're never done. I think all of this stuff is a continual process of learning, evolving. We're very, very new in the space. All of us in here, we talk about data, but we've just scratched the surface. I think everyone will kind of hit on that in a presentation. But for us, it actually lines up with one of the things we talk about as a brand, relentless pursuit of perfection. We are never done. And in this data space, I just kind of felt like it was relevant that, as a brand, we are just beginning and we are never done.
Man, that was not even close, Rory.
He's stunned, and I think everybody watching.
I just do not like the game right now. I mean, I'm just having a very, very hard time picking up the golf club to even just enjoy myself out there.
And then to do this right here.
Oh, no!
Golf course put folk through quite a punishment. It lives and breathes just like us.
There's always times you can say, what if?
What I'm talking about is a game that can't be won, only played.
That's all right, Francis. Even in our darkest hour, we must always remember, never despair.
The first step in finding a good game is to find some conviction.
We're looking for 1%. If you're gonna leave 1% in here, someone else is gonna find it.
Natural talent can only get you so far. I'm the last one to leave the golf course, and I'm one of the earliest guys there.
At the end of the day, I got to make sure I just make the swings. The ball's going to perform.
That's what the golf swing's all about. It's about gaining control of your life and letting go at the same time.
Let me tell you something. I came here to win a trophy.
Expect anything different?
Not for you, not for England, but for sheer bloody pride at being the best. That's why we do this.
You're never going to be perfect. You're going to miss shots. You're going to make bad swings. I try to do my very best of committing to every shot.
Thank you.
Other than, you know, how to play better.
It's Anthony from eMarsis again, and as you learned a few minutes ago, eMarsis is partnering with TaylorMade. Not to make a commercial, but it's for me as a golfer, it's been incredible. These guys are awesome, do a lot of really cool stuff. But my question is, I'm curious with Myron Pro, what profile of handicap is interacting with it the most?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, as I said at the beginning, your handicap isn't really indicative of your level of passion in the sport. And I think I've been with the company 8 years, and when I first got there, we didn't really know a lot about our customer, and we just assumed that a low handicap golfer is the most engaged golfer out there. And it's actually couldn't be further from the truth. So in that app, it's actually a mid double-digit handicapper. So a 10 to 14 handicap is the most engaged group. Which when we tell people that within the company, they're rather surprised because you think it's the better player, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5 handicapper that is trying to get better, but it's really that guy who's a 10, 14 handicap who wants to get down to a single-digit handicap is the meat of that golfer today. But it started from tour and better amateurs, college players really getting into the data, but it applies to anyone. If I only have a half hour to practice during the week because I have a job and kids and other things, tell me the one thing I should spend a half hour on. Most people would just go to the driving range and hit drivers. It's probably the last thing you need to work on. So if we can give you insights around that, say, go work on 50 to 70-yard pitch shots. That's what you should spend your 30 minutes on. That's really useful.
Are you doing anything to lessen your reliance on user input and that level of input? Are you able to take some of the data you're getting from, say, that it's 100,000 who are actively giving you that kind of level of detail and extrapolate from there, do lookalike modeling so that you're able to take action on that kind of data to profile other golfers who aren't interacting with you this way? Yeah,
I mean, we can. So again, the only way we were able to tell handicap or golfers before was by handicap. You're a 7 and you're a 7. You guys must be exactly alike, and that's not the case. And so we can start to really build segments around performance where you might have people that drive the ball really far but are poor in short game. And that profile may come up and we can start to look at those people together. And we also pull in a bunch of other data. If we pull in fitting data and these other things, we can start to build real unique profiles that are going to help us create lookalikes for here's the type of club you should be playing, here's the shaft particularly you should be using, because I know that based off all this other data I have on golfers like you, this is what they play and do. So we're inferring a lot from that data.
And then finally, since you mentioned you're playing the long game here, tell me about the sort of brand metrics you're looking to move ultimately. With this kind of, using this kind, you're essentially talking about the kind of relationship you're having with golfers. So I'm curious what kind of brand KPIs you're looking at, or in terms of just changing the whole brand image and messaging.
Yeah.
The same as that.
It's share of bag for us. So you got 14 clubs in your bag and a golf ball. And so for us, it's share of bag. Our history as a metalwood company. We sold metalwoods and did that very well for a long period of time. We are one of the number one iron company in golf, give or take on a given day. But categories like wedges and putters and golf ball, where we have a lot of opportunity, is kind of what we're looking at. So we want you to have 14 TaylorMade golf clubs in your bag and play a TaylorMade golf ball. But that's not the reality of golfers today.
Hi, my name is Mitch Wagaman. I'm with eDataSource.
Hey, Mitch.
And I know there's devices out there that you can put in the grip of your club or other things like that to provide additional measurement or feedback. My perception is a lot of very traditional, those low handicap golfers don't want those things associated with the club. Is there any research or anything coming down the road that gives you the data without the impedance in the perspective of the golfer?
Yeah, there are things out there. There are ways to capture that more passively, and we're looking at those. And there are things in market. But to your point, there are some people. They're a little obtrusive on the equipment today. They're becoming more seamless. But we see a day where this would just. It's going to be part of every piece of equipment at some point. And so the app allows you to kind of do your own experience. Again, like I said, a lot of people actually do it afterwards, where you kind of know where all your shots were. So I think we look at it 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. I think all equipment's going to have electronics on board in some way, shape, or form, and not be obtrusive.
John, I imagine that you're going to be as valuable out on the links over the next couple of days as you were on stage, which is great. So. John, thank you very much.